Welcome to the Wolf Mother Podcast, a podcast bridging the human and the being, speaking on spirituality, but rather than trying to escape this reality, we will be grounding and rooting down into everything that is the entirety of this human experience on Earth. I am Dana Harkis, space holder and healing facilitator, and we will always begin by taking 3 deep breaths together. So you can take a deep breath in through your nose, gently out of your mouth, in again through your nose, softly out of your mouth. Last time in through your nose, you're going to hold it at the top. And as you hold on to this breath, drop your shoulders, relax your jaw, try to calm the space in between your eyebrows. When I say 1, you'll let out a nice sigh. 3, 2, 1. Thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Today's episode, we will be answering briefly, I think, the topic of can ayahuasca make depression or bipolar disorder or anxiety worse? I am seated here today with Dylan Januszewski, who is a Kambo server, San Pedro server, and integration specialist. So we get questions constantly like this. So instead of us sending multiple voice memos to people over and over, we decided to just make a video to kind of answer this question. I'm going to read exactly the question that was given to us so that you can know exactly what was asked. So it says, wanted to ask you about depression and ayahuasca. I've read many things about how it could make your depression and anxiety worse. And if you or a parent has been diagnosed with bipolar, not to sit with the medicine. I've done very small amounts of Psilocybin and didn't feel much during, but the next day felt a little down. Any feedback would be great. Thank you. So to the person that reached out to ask this question, because we really don't know you other than the online space, thank you so much for feeling comfortable to ask this question. Dylan is probably going to answer from a more clinical and scientific lens. And that is exactly why he's the perfect person to talk to about this, because I think that's really important. Sometimes we only get one half of the conversation, which is very much the spiritual, ceremonial, energetic. But to give you a brief background on me before we get into what I'd like you to kind of dive into, I weaned for a year off of my antidepressants so that I could sit with ayahuasca. So one of my biggest reasonings for going to the medicine was because I didn't want to be on antidepressants anymore. So that is the reason why I sought out ayahuasca. So I think that's a good place to start because this question and this topic of conversation hits very close to home with me. And so I'd like to pass it over to you and whatever you'd like to get into and say.
Yeah, so as far as ayahuasca or psychedelics and causing or alleviating depression, I think it's a big misconception that it alleviates depression. I also think it's a big misconception that it causes depression. I don't think anyone really knows what it does, but my personal opinion, and from what I've seen being around this medicine and these medicines in my experience, is it doesn't matter. It doesn't do anything for either. And the reason I'm going to say that is because I'm going to pull a pretty commonly used phrase for both of these, which is, or for all of them, which is sitting with ayahuasca or sitting with psychedelics is like getting 10 years or 5 years of psychotherapy in one night. I honestly believe that that's what it is. But looking at it from that perspective, going to actual therapy, it does help with your symptoms, but it doesn't alleviate the depression. What alleviates the depression is those coping mechanisms and those different ways of kind of interacting with yourself and the world. That's what changes and helps alleviate your depression. So when you go and talk to a psychotherapist or you go and talk to a therapist, a lot of times they'll offer you different solutions to the problem that you're experiencing. For example, you're having trouble within your friend group. They might say, well, have you thought about bringing these differences in opinion up to the group and maybe trying to come to a easy conclusion? That kind of stuff is the stuff that cuts down depression by cutting down stress in your life. So what these medicines do is they show you what is bothering you, what you need help with, what's weighing on your mind, whether subconsciously or consciously. It is on you to seek out the coping mechanisms in order to deal with the stuff that's coming up. And there's a term with that's used in basically anywhere that serves plant medicine called integration. Anywhere that serves it has an integration circle, free integration. The free integration is not enough. You're welcome to take hold of as many free integration groups as you want. It's not enough. Some people have the natural ability to integrate on their own without any help. But to kind of compare this, some people also have the natural ability to invest and be correct most of the time and make a lot of money. That's not the general population. The general population can't just integrate on their own by themselves. Some of you might be able to, but I think the trick is differentiating if you are or are not that person, because making that jump that's too hasty and thinking I can integrate it all on my own, that's only going to cause problems for you. I've fallen victim to that too, kind of making that arrogant assumption that I can integrate this all by myself, and then getting caught with a heap and a wall of depression. So what I'm saying is, in order to avoid the depression that could come along with plant medicines, you have to integrate. If you integrate, you won't get those symptoms, or they won't be as bad, or they will alleviate quicker depending on your scenario and what you're dealing with. Not all situations can be fixed overnight. And the last quick thing I'll say about that is looking at it as at your brain and the way that it works. When you sit with ayahuasca, it shows you a bunch of stuff that you like or don't like about your life. And when you get shown all of those things, the things that you don't like, the natural human instinct is, I want to fix those things. Because if I don't like them, let me get them out of my life so I can like my life better. Pretty easy, simple solution. It never works out that easy, but that's the basic idea. But when the brain knows that I want something in my life, and I'm going to kind of tie this to something that I used to struggle with in the past, and sometimes it still comes up, but let's say I make my room a little messy, and my brain is telling me, hey, you really should clean this, it's not a nice atmosphere to be in anymore. But then I tell my brain, I don't really feel like it, or I ignore it and I, watch Netflix or whatever. My subconscious is going to continuously get angry at me, and I'm going to continuously get angry at my subconscious, which is going to feed that depression. It's going to feed that feeling of, well, I don't deserve to clean my room. You might not be saying it, but every time you're not cleaning your room, and you know you should, you're basically telling your subconscious, I don't deserve a clean room. I don't deserve that space. So it makes it a little bit difficult when sitting with plant medicines, because they show you not clean your room. They show you this intricate problem in your life is a problem. Fix it. And it's not going to be, okay, let me pick up a few towels. It's going to be, okay, I need to move jobs, change my area, but also do it in a way that I can continue to live my life at the quality of life that I like and not go into debt over doing all this. It's a lot of intricate things that need to change. So that's kind of my
let's take a deep breath. The reason for the deep breath is because thank you so much for everything that you said. That was very clear and concise. If there's one thing about Dylan, he gets to the point when you when you really need him to get to the point. But I think what's important to point out here is that this original question of, can it make it worse? Everything that he's saying is true. And if you're already struggling with anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, if these things run in your family, and then you sit with these medicines, and you can have a traumatic experience on medicine. Like that, I've had traumatic experiences on medicine where I've had flashbacks that have happened, PTSD, over time.
Not to interrupt you, but healing is traumatic. Whenever you get a burn wound and you go into the hospital, the first thing they do, they scrub that burn as hard as they can and get all the extra stuff off there. It hurts. It's not fun. And I've watched it happen many times. But in order to heal, it's a traumatic experience.
I think what I'm trying to point out is the fact that, like, you will see online people talk about, like, these beautiful, like, mushroom journeys or ayahuasca journeys where they're just like, I felt the love of the mother and the oneness and I'm so connected to the earth, like with San Pedro. Yeah. But that's not the reality for everyone. Like, for me, when I sit with San Pedro, I am, like, thrown into the floor and under. It's not the whole, like, wow, life is so great and grand and beautiful. And so that is important to take into consideration if you're choosing to sit with these medicines. are you already in therapy? Because you should be. For me, I call it my team. When I went and sat with ayahuasca, I had an entire team of people that were not even at the ayahuasca church that I went to go sit with that were able to support me in my integration process after I sat with this medicine. And I had only been off of my antidepressants for about 4 or 5 weeks, because you need like a whole month to be off of them before you sit with ayahuasca. There are some people that will serve you like after you've detoxed for a day or two. Really not great for your psyche and everything and whatnot. But there are some people that just will, because, you know, this is where the spirituality comes in. You know, they just believe that if you're positive about it, it will work out and the medicine will provide what it needs. Well, the reality in our society is that you really need to take into consideration like what you actually need. So if you are somebody who, this question says, I've taken a little bit of psilocybin and the next day I felt down. These medicines can bring you up into the atmosphere, into Father Sky, into all these different dimensions and celestial planes. Of course, when you come back down, and if you are somebody that battles depression, anxiety, or BPD on a regular basis, of course you're going to be depressed. Because yesterday, you were fucking flying on the clouds. You were having a grand old time. Even if it was difficult, what the medicine was showing you, you know, like what you were saying, like, you know, clean your room, or move your place, do this, ABC, XYZ, you were just up. You were so fucking high. And now being back in your body can feel so fucking low. So you need to also make you have to have the discernment, is rather what I should say, of if it's important, if it will be beneficial for you to sit with this medicine. Also, who are you sitting with this medicine with? We have a very like long protocol intake that we need to kind of know everything about what's going on for you before you can come and sit with us to sit with medicine. That's just how we take it. There are some people that won't ask you. There are some places that don't do any sort of integration, that they won't let you know that there's anybody who's an integration specialist that you can talk to. That, in our opinion, is a problem. That's why we harp. I literally said this yesterday. We harp on integration, like harp on it. And we think it's important for us to harp on it because if you don't have depression, anxiety, and BPD, you can come up against these issues after you sit with medicine. But especially depression, anxiety, BPD, those types of mental illnesses, if you're coming and you're sitting, you need to be held in a tight space and container with people that understand and are willing to hold that space for you post-ceremony. That make sense?
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to say in response to this question? I mean, we get all different types of questions, but this is specifically what we're just answering today.
Yeah. So there's definitely a down process, like she said, with all of the plant medicines. There are some studies that are coming out that show that microdosing mushrooms can help alleviate depression and can help alleviate anxiety and stuff like that. It's all really budding, really promising information, but essentially what these medicines are acting as is a much lighter and better and cleaner version of an antidepressant. Now, it's very misleading what I just said, but basically they cause an effect on your brain that alleviates some of the symptoms of depression. Well, I'm sure all of you either have or have met or know of or heard a story about someone who was taking antidepressants and stopped and just, it was horrible. Like they had problems or maybe their emotions were all over the place. Now, these are much lighter, but it's the same thing. It's a cause and effect. If you take something that's going to alleviate the symptoms a little bit and they come back a little bit the next day, the difference is going to be uncomfortable.
100%.
Yeah. And one last thing. A lot of really successful people say you should run your life like a business. Now, I'm not going to get into all that, but if you look at some of the most successful people in the world, they have a team of people working with them to help make decisions. When you're looking at sitting with psychedelics or working on your mental space, if you're running your life or your mind like a business, get some people who know what they're doing and have them help you, because you're going to have a much easier time and you're going to spend way less time on fixing these problems. The team of people is your greatest asset when trying to heal yourself. That's why we get therapists. That's why we turn to medicine carers. That's why we get integration coaches. And this isn't a new idea. Cavemen have been doing this. Cavemen did this. They all worked together to go as a team to find good hunting grounds, to get food or get meat or whatever. Like, it's not a new idea. So you're not alone out there. Find a team of people that can help you and try to implement that.
If you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know where to go, I've had medicine journeys, whether you've sat in ceremony or not sat in ceremony, Dylan is a fantastic integration specialist. His rates are extremely affordable. I don't really know what your availability is like for new clients, but if you reach out, we can at least have that conversation to see what that looks like. Every month we do a free monthly integration, but like Dylan said in the beginning, if you have no team, coming to these free integrations will not be enough. But we keep the space open because we want to encourage people to keep coming to these spaces. A lot of the question that we're answering today, a lot of people bring it into the integration space that we have when they're like, I don't know who else to talk to about this shit. Can I talk to you guys about it? Yeah. Which is obviously fine. And we answer these questions, right? Yeah. But also keeping in mind that if these medicines call to you, to really do your research on who you're sitting with. And also, not everybody that sits with medicine, because we have had a lot of clients come with us, come on retreats and come to ceremonies and not follow through with their integration processes. And then they get angry at the ceremony, or they get angry at the medicine over time because they're like, well, I didn't receive what everyone talks about. And that just goes to show you, if you don't follow up with the integration process, then what your original intentions you set out when you sat in ceremony will not come to fruition, or will have a much harder time, longer time coming to fruition. So please feel free to reach out. This is going to be on YouTube and on Spotify. Please leave us any comments with other questions that you have. We would love to answer them. If there is a question that you'd like us to do a talk on, please leave that as well. And like I said, reach out to Dylan if you'd like private sessions. Reach out to us if you'd like to join our free monthly integrations. We only take 10 people at a time though, to keep it small and intimate, because we do want to get to know you guys. Is there anything else? No, that's everything. We'll take one last deep breath in together and let a nice sigh out. We said a lot of things. Digest it with however much time you guys need. Many blessings to you and yours, and we hope to see you soon.